Hey guys, what's up? I just binge watched 13 Reasons Why. A lot of you guys recommended the show to me and people have been asking, have I watched it or what I think about it, and wow. I haven't even digested the whole show. All I know is that it was really hard to watch. Definitely made me feel just sick and sad and just, it's just it's such a heavy show. At least to me, it's definitely relatable. I mean, I feel like I totally understand how Hannah Baker feels or how so many of the characters feel. At the same time, I can see why the show received so much criticism and backlash because it was very sort of graphic. I can see how someone would say that the show romanticized suicide. I don't think suicide is ever the right answer. I don't think it should ever happen. But the reality of it is it does happen. People do get pushed so far that they feel like there is no hope. The show just really breaks my heart because it happens all the time, and I feel like a lot of people feel this way. I know there's a lot of times where people will say, wow, I had no idea so-and-so was depressed, or I had no idea they would ever do something like that. And I feel like the ones who end up maybe going too far are the ones that you would have never expected because they cried for help in ways that weren't noticed. I do believe that you should get help. I do believe you should talk to someone because sometimes your thoughts and living and dwelling in your thoughts of negativity really only brings you somewhere darker and darker and leads you to a point of feeling hopeless. There have been so many seasons in my life where I was just so sad for so long for what seemed like no apparent reason. I think 13 Reasons Why paints a good picture where you see all the different things and people that affected her, but I don't really think it was anything in particular or a person that really made her go that far. I really think it was this overwhelming feeling of hopelessness and loneliness and depression that caused her to go too far. There was one point in my life where I think I cried every single day for a year. I would wake up and cry, wash my face and cry, and then I would just go back and lay in bed because there was no point of getting ready because I was just gonna cry again. And I remember when I was going through that season of life, I pushed away a lot of my friends. I didn't leave my place. I wasn't being social. And at one point, I felt like I had no friends. I had pushed everybody out of my life. My family was in the Midwest, so I was really alone in LA, and it was probably one of the loneliest couple years of my life. And I remember at that time I would always think things like, if I killed myself, nobody would even know for a week or two. When I was struggling with a lot of that, people would just say, just be thankful for the things that are good in your life, or don't be so sad. You don't have to be sad. You have a lot of things to be happy about. And the thing that's crazy is that's what almost drives you crazy, is thinking, I shouldn't be this sad. I shouldn't be this depressed. What is wrong with me? I don't want to feel this way. But I know that feeling is real. And sometimes you have to figure out how you can live with it or what you can do to help you, whether it's talking to your friends, seeking help. And sometimes I think you should seek help from numerous people. Maybe one counselor, two counselors are not the right match for you. Maybe therapist A isn't as good as therapist B or C would be. People are not perfect, and a therapist or a counselor isn't perfect. I've gotten plenty of bad advice in my life, but at the same time, I've tried a lot of different things. Sometimes working out really helps me, releasing endorphins or trying to fill my days. I realize what brings me happiness is purpose. What's worked is finding purpose in my life and feeling like there is a plan and there is something valuable in my life, and that brings me happiness. And whether it's talking to somebody or getting help or counseling or a mentor or a friend or prayer, I know my biggest help was definitely a community and my relationship with God, and knowing that I have purpose in my life and that I have a vision. And even when I struggle with feeling that sadness and emptiness, I'm sort of looking up and out at the world and at God and what I feel like God has blessed my life with, instead of looking at myself, and try to focus on positives as much as I can. For example, I had a mentor tell me that I need to compliment myself. And I know this sounds really weird, but anytime I do anything the automatic first thought is, I could have done better, or it wasn't that good. And I'm always judging myself. And so there's so much negativity. And then on top of that, I have audition after audition, failure after failure, and it's just a lot of negativity. And sometimes it just really piles on each other, and then I feel so like hopeless and so failure mode. And I think it really is dangerous. But when my mentor told me I need to start telling myself positives and compliments, I realized that it does balance it out. If I say things like, hey, that was like a really good effort, or you did this well, or you're doing it, at least you showed up at the audition, at least you are putting yourself out there, or hey, your haircut looks awesome today. Like, I mean, it might sound silly, but I feel like whatever it is, like sometimes I say things like, hey, at least Chewy loves me, or like, I have really awesome friends, and I definitely have love in my life. And I know this sounds cheesy, but we wouldn't appreciate the sunny days without the rainy ones. Sometimes it rains for a really long time, at least for me, even though it rained for years and years. And even though some days I still feel empty and lost, I've kind of come to a place where that's kind of how I'm always gonna feel. And every morning I have to wake up and tell myself that today I'm going to make healthy choices. I'm going to spend my time wisely. I'm going to care for my heart and myself. But I just wanted to say, if you are dealing with depression or sadness, please talk to somebody. Please get help. Know that you are loved and that you aren't alone. Depression is so different from sadness, and I think that people misunderstand that quite often. I do believe and know that depression is real. Depression is a serious mental illness, and that feeling of hopelessness, emptiness, nothingness is terrible. But I do believe that everyone's experience in overcoming depression or learning to live with depression is very different. There's no formula that works for everyone. If you have a friend who struggles with depression, I would definitely encourage them to get help, or just listen to them. And I would advise you probably not to say something like, just choose to be happy, or just don't be sad anymore. And so I guess I would just encourage you to love them, encourage them, and definitely push them to get help, because ultimately it's really hard to fight depression alone. I should process my thoughts better, but yeah, I mean, I just watched the show and it just made me feel just so sick. Like, I felt so angry. Anyways, I know the show received a lot of criticism. Maybe it could have been a little bit more tactful, maybe a little bit more graceful, but at the same time, when you're dealing with something so serious and so real, I can understand why they wanted to go that sort of extreme route, because they're saying nothing good comes out of suicide. Nothing good comes out of that. Anyways, take a second to love yourself, because you are amazing.